all these like fake goths started yelling at us, throwing like Cheetos at us and like booing us because we cut the line. Hi, welcome to Angel's Anything Show, and today I'm going to be bringing you a list of the top 10 best pop punk bands from the late 90s, early 2000s. Yes, the late 90s, early 2000s was the golden age for pop punk music, and me, as somebody who's almost 30, was the prime candidate to listen to these bands, and indeed I did. As you can see, I have my very special Blink-182 baseball tee on because pop punk music defined my life during that time. I was pudgy, I didn't fit in, I basically hated everybody I went to middle school with and high school, and I was one of the people that listened to pop punk music, and you know, I listened to the lyrics and it really spoke to me, and pop punk is responsible for really getting me into music in a really serious way and has led to who I am today. And I'm a huge music lover, and now I'm a big Fish head, but I would venture to guess that a lot of people who are into jam bands now probably were into pop punk music earlier on in life. Now, pop punk gets a bad rep because it's like pop punk, but I'm not talking about, you know, what came after the pop punk golden years, because that's all kind of watered down shit. Like, you know, once we started getting to like Simple Plan, it all went downhill. But during that small window, there was some really great music, and it's time that we honor that music with this list. By the way, if you like this style vid, I have a lot more listy fun videos, so definitely check them out in my playlist below and subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed yet. And lastly, if a band that you think should be on the list is not, chances are I did think of them, but they just didn't make the cut for top 10, or their timeline was a little earlier or a little later. But this video is inspired by an article I wrote for the blog that I work for. So if you want to read the full article, then check that out. I'm going to leave the link in the description box below. Okay, with that said, let's get into the fucking list. The first band to make the list for the best pop punk bands of the late 90s, early 2000s. Number 10. This is a controversial one, but Good Charlotte. Now, I know Good Charlotte is essentially the Nickelback of pop punk music, and people love to jump on the bandwagon about why they're so shitty, but if we're talking early Good Charlotte releases, their self-titled album is amazing. I Heard You, Screamer, The Little Things, such good songs. They really epitomize the whole I'm in love with the cheerleading captain and she's with the football jock and I'm a loser and nobody likes me and my dad left me. It's easy to make fun of them because some of their releases later on in their career were kind of shitty, but if we're talking about current releases, all of these bands have shitty current releases. Funny anecdote, Good Charlotte New Found Glory was one of the first concerts I've ever been to, and I had never like been to a concert where you lined up for like general admission, and me and the friends I were with, we like didn't realize that we accidentally cut the general admission line at this Good Charlotte show, and all these like fake goths started yelling at us, throwing like Cheetos at us, booing us because we cut the line, like they were rioting against us. Like they started taunting us to the point where we left the line and they all started cheering na 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 na, hey hey, goodbye. It was absolutely scarring. So if you're watching this and you're one of those people, fuck you. Number 9, the Ataris. Now, a lot of people will probably remember the Ataris for their cover of Don Henley's Boys of Summer. Killer cover, and that's kind of when they got mainstream successful, but the true fans will remember the Ataris for I Won't Spend Another Night Alone, How I Spent My Summer Vacation, and just the really lyrical storytelling and really catchy tunes. Number 8, Say Anything. Ugh. They've had a lot of releases since their like seminal Say Anything Is a Real Boy / Was a Real Boy double disc release, but nothing else matters besides that album because that album is so incredible. I called her on the phone and she touched herself. Passing slowly through a vector. Admit it. It was way more than what your average pop punk band was coming out with at the time. That's the type of album that I'll kind of forget about, and then every couple of years I'll remember and then re-listen to it and just like have a moment, and I think I'm probably gonna go do that after this. Max Bemis, I hope that you're doing okay these days. What's my hair doing? Speaking of doing okay. Next up on the list, number 7, best pop punk band. Taking Back Sunday. Taking Back Sunday, one of the Long Island pop punk groups, and people were really enthralled by them because of the whole Adam Lazzara, Jesse Lacey lyrical feud. Tell All Your Friends is one of their most important albums. Best Friends means I pulled the trigger. And despite going through several huge lineup changes, they still managed to continue to come out with some good albums, and they're still around. Best Friends means you get what you deserve. Number 6, Jimmy Eat World. Jimmy Eat World was emo before emo was like an insult. They're one of the original emo emotional bands. They broke through to the mainstream with their album Bleed American, but fans of the band before their massive success The Middle, which is like one of their least good songs, by the way, will know albums like Clarity. I used to just like put the album Clarity on and lay in my bed and just like fall asleep to the beautiful melodic music. And then after Bleed American, they followed up with Futures, which is a really equally amazing album. And then after that, like a lot of their stuff to me became more generic, you know, my tastes changed, but they were really the first of their kind at the time, and they deserve a spot on the list faux show. Number 5, New Found Glory. Now, you can't have a pop punk list without having New Found Glory on the list. They were kind of proteges of Blink-182, and they'd go out on the road with them a lot. And New Found Glory was like, had that whole, oh, like I paint my nails black, but you can still introduce me to your parents kind of image. Pop punk, but also very like wholesome. And their frontman, Jordan Pudnick, he was famous for like all the charisma he had. He was so like crazy and energetic on stage. And oh my God, I was so desperately in love with Chad Gilbert, who's now married to Hayley Williams from Paramore, which is like, oh my God, like the perfect pop punk couple. I was so obsessed with Chad. Like, I remember going to see them, and he did this part in the show where he ran out through the crowd, and I reached out and like touched his nipple and was just like, I touched his nipple, I touched his nipple. They had a lot of success from their song Hit or Miss, and they were also really successful with all their cover songs, including Glory of Love, which is like one of their most popular cover songs. And then they started to get more famous, and as it happens, you know, Jordan's voice got even higher and more nasally, and their stuff kind of went downhill, but they are up there in my heart forever. I was so obsessed with them, and I touched Chad's nipple, so there's that. Number 4 on our list is Saves the Day. Now, Saves the Day is interesting. They never achieved quite as much success as a lot of the people they came up with, but I think if you were to ask anybody who is a real fan of this genre, they would always cite Saves the Day as one of the best bands doing it, and definitely the most lyrical of the bands. And also, Stay What You Are and Through Being Cool are probably 2 of the best pop punk albums of all fucking time. Through Being Cool, 'cause I'm through being cool. Saves the Day does this interesting thing where a lot of their older songs, they're so lyrical, and at the time when I was like 13, I didn't even know what the fuck they were talking about, but I was just so enthralled by it. I listened to that album recently. They don't even have like structured songs. It's mostly just Chris Connolly just talking, just riff, chorus, talking, chorus. I don't think that many bands can pull that off without sounding super sloppy. Number 3, Alkaline Trio. So Alkaline Trio is like one of those bands where you really relate to the lyrics, even though the lyrics circle around like depression, drug addiction, and alcohol abuse. But when I was in middle school, I was like, wow, this song is great. Like, where are you, my little needle? And then now at age 29, I'm like, oh shit, they were talking about heroin. This band was so dark and perfect. They were the edge that the pop punk movement really needed. A breath of brooding fresh air, let's say. Also, who wasn't desperately in love with Matt Skiba? My young, like, middle school heart. I'm like, ooh, I wanna fix him. He seems like he's got some demons. It's like on the same album, they could have a song about depression, and then the next song could be one of your best love songs of all time. I love to rub your back. I put that song in my AIM profile about like anyone I was ever in love with, which is probably why I could never get a date in high school. Number 2 on the list, Brand New. Brand New is the other half of the Taking Back Sunday Beef, and they're also another one of those Long Island pop punk bands that came up. But the reason they're number 2 and Taking Back Sunday was number 7 is because Brand New is still good. Their music was always a little more evolved than everybody else. Their lyrics are always a little bit better, and so is their sound. And they kind of transcended the pop punk genre and have moved on to other things, and their music has matured. And also, Jessie Lacey was sexy as hell. Do we notice a common trend among these bands that I've chosen? But seriously, Your Favorite Weapon, I mean, that album is still so good and so listenable. And then to follow it up with Deja Entendu, like, which is sonically totally different and just so good. It's like, they're one of the few bands that got out of the trappings of the pop punk thing and moved on, and I think that's due to Jessie Lacey's lyrics, which are really amazing, and yeah, I love them. Okay guys, we've reached number 1 on our list of best pop punk bands of the late 90s, early 2000s, and it is, drumroll please, Blink-182, bitches! You think that I wasn't gonna put my guys on this list? Come on now. Of course, if you have a list of the best pop punk bands of late 90s, early 2000s, you gotta put Blink on it. Now, real fans know that they started up in 92, 93, but their golden age was like 99 to 2005. Enema of the State, best pop punk album of all time. Dude Ranch, amazing. And even their self-titled album that they came out with right before they broke up was probably their best album. And that album elevated them to a new level. Blink-182 is so important to the pop punk movement because they bridge the gap between punk and pop. And for a person like me, they helped me get into a genre that may have been too aggressive and intimidating for me to get into as a 13-year-old. But then once I got into Blink, and then they would cite their influences, the Descendants, the Vandals, Lagwagon, this, that, which then made me get into all those bands. So they allowed me to get into more legitimate punk bands that I would never have heard of before. They're kind of like the entry point. And I think Green Day did that for them a decade prior, and then Blink was that for my generation. Blink is still actively touring. They just finished a summer tour, and they're joined by Matt Skiba now, and they actually just released a new album with the 3 of them. Rip Tom DeLonge. I can't even go there, it's too sad. Their new album is pretty bad, but no matter what, I will forever love Blink-182 because they shaped the music that I listen to, my attitude. They allowed me to feel like I had friends and like people that related to me when I was in school at a time where I couldn't relate to anybody else. They did this for me and for thousands and thousands of other people. So for that reason, I think Blink-182 deserves the number 1 spot on this list. Who did I miss? I know there's tons of bands you think I should have listed. Look, Green Day is not on the list because they broke through in the early 90s. NoFX isn't on the list because they're like not really pop punk, you know? But anyway, I definitely want to hear what you think. Honorable mentions maybe? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching this episode of Angel's Anything Show. And now I need to go listen to a ton of old pop punk music, okay? Bye! I memorized that thing front to back. It had 2 words, Jessie Lacey. 3 words, hot as hell. It might even be around. And now Grant, oh yeah, dancing bunny, there it goes.